Conspiracy theories tend to form during periods of intense crisis and sweeping social and technological changes, which was absolutely the case in the decades following the Civil War and throughout the Industrial Revolution.
Everybody knows that the telegraph, telephone, wireless, electric lights, gas lights, steam railroads, electric roads, machinery, conveniences, etc. of our day were all unknown a century ago.
There will always be a market for conspiracy theories because the future will arrive whether we're ready for it or not, and many of us are not.
God describes our day in Daniel's prophecy, saying, "In the time of the end of this age, many shall run to and fro, knowledge shall be increased, the wise shall understand, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation." Are we not in the midst of the running to and fro which this prophecy predicted? We must, therefore, be living today in the period designated the time of the end, the time in which this age will gradually close, and the new age will gradually dawn with greater blessings. The first locomotive was built only 80 years ago. Now in every land, multitudes are running to and fro whose grandfathers probably never traveled 50 miles from their birthplace. Surely no prophecies could be more accurately fulfilled than this one. Who but God could have known and foretold this marked peculiarity of our day? As God made not the earth in vain, but to be inhabited, this same principle doubtless applies to the other planets of our solar system and to 1,000 millions of other worlds of which astronomy tells us. They are all to be peopled, and the things learned in the sin experience of our earth are to be their instruction.
When Charles Taze Russell looked into the Bible, he believed that he had discovered many connections between his mistaken Bible chronology and current world events. Any contrary evidence was rejected or ignored. Those connections were not real, they were examples of apophenia. So is any conspiracy that claims a secret source of knowledge to explain the truth about either random or quite explicable world events, many of which are attributed to shadowy invisible powers. Conspiracy theories cast those who believe them as members of an elite group of people in the know, the us locked in an eternal battle with them.
These things mark the time for the wise of God's people to understand the Bible. How needful for this special light.
And they often carry an apocalyptic message in which believers are told that very, very soon the truth of their claims will come to light, and the world and nation will be transformed. At that time, believers will be vindicated and will live in a world that is finally free of them, the scapegoats and enemies who they blame for all their problems. The Watchtower's primary sales strategy targets individuals and families experiencing internal or external crises, people with limited access to information and low self-efficacy and self-esteem. And we can see all the same patterns in the QAnon movement.
27% of white evangelicals said they believe QAnon was completely or mostly accurate.
Evangelicals want the end of the world to happen. They're not afraid of it. They embrace it. And when you're embracing it, you're always looking for evidence that it's going to happen because that keeps your flock in line and keeps them energized and encouraged to keep worshiping because like the end's getting closer now. The end's getting closer now. Don't give up.
And when things don't work out as foretold, it's easy enough to explain.
No matter what happens, they're going to keep moving that timeline out. For them, it's going to eventually end in Armageddon, in the end of time. But it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
This doomsday playbook is now integrated into American politics and pop culture.
And that really picked up about 150 years ago. There was a guy named John Darby who had this idea called dispensationalism, which is the idea that there's going to be a rapture. And it's like every 50 years or so, someone finds a new way to sort of reinvent it, dig it up, revitalize it, and give it to a new audience in a new way, right? So we had the Great Awakening where pastors were preaching to thousands of people in fields all across America, talking about the end of time and sinners in the hands of an angry God and all these things. But then it evolves from there.
For a really excellent explanation of the origin and dangers of conspiracy theories, I highly encourage you to watch the video linked below called In Search of a Flat Earth. It's well worth your time. Charles Taze Russell's conspiracy theory, what he called the divine plan of the ages, assured his followers that despite all the apparent chaos, everything was going according to plan, that someone was in charge, and that the Watchtower alone offered life-saving insight into Bible prophecy. Russell also taught that if readers were willing to accept and promote his teachings, that they could be among those who would survive the imminent apocalypse. That exact same message continues to be preached by Jehovah's Witnesses today. What Jehovah's Witnesses do not preach, much less know, is what Russell's Watchtower taught until his death in 1916. Jehovah's Witnesses do not know, for instance, that Charles Taze Russell taught that the last days begin in 1799.
When Napoleon Bonaparte took the Pope a prisoner to France, the spell of sacerdotal rule was broken.
Jehovah's Witnesses do not know that Russell's Watchtower taught that 1874 marked 6,000 years since Adam's creation, that biblical prophecy could be confirmed using the lengths of chambers within the Great Pyramid of Giza, that there would be a 40-year harvest period between 1874 and 1914, and that 1914 would mark the end, not the beginning, of the last days. This is because although Charles Taze Russell founded the Watchtower and established a group of Bible students to follow his teachings, Charles Taze Russell was not one of Jehovah's Witnesses, never heard of Jehovah's Witnesses, and did not create the Jehovah's Witnesses. That was Russell's successor as president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, Joseph Rutherford.